Heroes Like Us is a series intended at sharing comic book characters from various backgrounds and identities. We won't always get everything right, so feel free to make amendments and corrections in the comments. They're always appreciated. What's not appreciated, however, is any form of hate speech or intolerance, so comments of that nature will be immediately deleted and those users blocked from this channel. This is a place of education and celebration. Welcome to I'm Your Target Demographic, and welcome to Heroes Like Us, our series where we look at certain identities and then we talk about comic book characters that have those identities. We've already done a video on bisexual characters, but the comments were loud and clear that there were people that I missed. There were some obvious ones and there were some not so obvious ones. So now we're doing another round of bisexual comic book characters for you to learn about. So I'm going to go through them rather quickly and give you just enough that if you're interested in that character, you can go check out the books that they're in. So let's start at the beginning. We're going to start with Catman from DC Comics. Thomas Blake, who eventually becomes Catman, started out as an enemy for Batman. And like Batman, he also has a tragic past. He had to kill his own father, who killed his mother. It was this very messy thing. But he ended up growing up and becoming a cat burglar, wearing the suit and going by the name Catman. Now, for a long time, Catman was a D-list villain at best. That no one really talked about him. He was kind of a joke. Until he got roped into the Secret Six, where he kind of got a prominent story arc. He got a little more page time, and they got to really flesh out more about his character. Now, unfortunately, Secret Six was canceled before some of these plot lines really got to come up. So we saw that he had a child with the villain Cheshire, but it was confirmed by the authors of the book that they intended to really flesh out his bisexuality. And so it wasn't really covered much in the books, but Catman is a character that hopefully someone will rope in to some more modern storylines. Up next from Wildstorm Comics, we've got Swift, Shen Li Men. Swift is Tibetan, and she was part of this storyline where kind of people were given powers, like all of a sudden a bunch of people kind of got these abilities, and her ability was to sprout wings and to fly. Through later story arcs, Swift then became the protector of the earth and nature and kind of took on this Gaia-like role, able to communicate with the planet and protect it. Now, she served on a group called the Authority, and during that time she was in a relationship with the heroine, Jenny Sparks. Up next is probably one of the most obvious ones that I missed in part one that people wanted me to include here, and that is Harley Quinn, the psychiatrist Harleen Quinzel. Now, Harleen was a psychiatrist who worked with the Joker. Eventually, she fell in love with the Joker and kind of went a little bit off the deep end, where Joker kind of used her to escape from Arkham Asylum and then kind of threw her into a vat of acid to bleach her skin to look like his, where she kind of disassociated from her old identity and now lives as Harley Quinn. Now, Harley's origin was actually in Batman the Animated Series, where she met Poison Ivy Pamela Isley. Now, Pamela was a botany student who kind of got caught in this experiment where she became immune to toxins and somewhat able to control plants. I'm not sure where her skin kind of turned green. I don't know where that came from, but eventually she has this ability to kind of control plants and is immune to poisons and uses toxins to affect others. Now, there was a spin-off book called Gotham City Sirens, which focused on Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy and Catwoman. And during this run, Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn were shown to be in a romantic relationship, though we know that both of them have had other interactions and have other feelings for other men. And we see this relationship amped up in other DC stories such as Bombshells, which I think is an alternative reality story, and so there's some things that aren't necessarily canon, but Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn have, in different mediums, crossed paths in very significant ways. In the Injustice universe, they even got married. So we're seeing some really interesting stuff being done in non-canonical stories. We'll see what happens in the mainstream DC continuity. Up next from Marvel Comics, we've got Prodigy, David Elenye. Now, David is a mutant who was born with the ability to absorb knowledge, skills, all sorts of stuff from people around him. And so he kind of is just gathering things. So he can learn fighting styles. He can learn how to use computers, how to pilot a jet. He can learn all of this by being in the proximity of other people. Now, in the event known as M-Day, Prodigy lost his ability, but he was given back all the info that he had. So he still knows everything that he learned, but he's unable to learn new information. While in the X-Men, he dated another character named Surge, but he had feelings for another character named Hulkling, and it got a little awkward, and I don't think anything happened between the two of them. Lastly, we're going to go old school, and we're going to talk about Love and Rockets, and specifically the character called Maggie. Now, Maggie, her stories are fairly grounded, but they do go a little out of the norm every once in a while. So she becomes a mechanic for spaceships for a time, and she kind of goes on different adventures, and each book is fairly independent. That there are some books that she's not in. There's some books that she might be the main character. It kind of goes all across the board. And these started back in the 80s, and they're still coming out. There's a new entry planned for 2019. Since these are so independent, a lot of these books might focus on romances and relationships. And so we see Maggie form relationships and lose relationships and form new relationships. And it's all ebbs and flows, just the way that real life does. And a lot of people really resonate with Love and Rocket ships, especially being from the 80s. This was kind of trend-setting, right? This was something new, especially Maggie, who is a Mexican-American woman. This was not something that you could see really in other comic books. So that is it for this video. That was, 5 new bisexual characters. If there's some that I missed in part 1 and part 2, let me know down in the comments. I would love to do a part 3 if we can find enough characters. So thanks for watching Heroes Like Us. I always appreciate it. And thanks for bearing with me taking some time off. I know it's been a while since our last video, but thank you for holding still and waiting for me. So check out other videos if you haven't. Here's our whole playlist, and here's our LGBT playlist. Hopefully you find them interesting. Thanks.